Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, Von Miller, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. If follows aren't your thing, that's okay. I'll take the deed to your house, or a blank check, as I like to say. I don't know what I had planned for this intro. I was kind of wing it / write some stuff down. And yeah, as Jay says in the comment right now in the chat, couldn't have timed this stream better. That's correct. I don't really know what to do right now with my head, with my heart, with my mind, with my hands. Kendall and I got into the chat here to start to, go over some talking points and some show notes and things. And I'm just going to switch the banner at the bottom because why not? And then all of a sudden, Von Miller, like 10 minutes ago or 12 minutes ago. And so what you're getting right now, we're going to get in this episode, to start this episode, is just some real raw reaction to this news, because Taylor came in and was like, hey, any news today? Just a little. Yeah, like this is wild right now. So you're just getting our pure, we've looked at, we already have some thoughts in our head, and then we looked up some notes and, on the field perspective and analytics and things like that. And then there's contract stuff to go over. There's the fit to go over. There's so much stuff going on right now, but this is just one, let me say, for the rest of the episode, right? Like, we're going to go through the Bills free agents that they brought on and talk about, like, Isaiah McKenzie, Mitch Morse. We're going to talk about that, what it means for those position groupings, what it means for the rest of this offseason, what it means from a grading perspective and the team and all that kind of stuff. That is our thought. And as we go through each player, each level, all that stuff, we want to hear your thoughts, your reactions, your grades, everything like that. And also, while you're here, if you're here live, we got 89 with us right now. Appreciate the super chat donation. Somebody says, someone explain the Von money to me before I cry. We're going to talk about that right now. But everybody in here now, please drop a like while you're here. It goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears and all that stuff. Oh boy, Kendall.
Yeah.
Von Miller, instant reaction, thoughts. Like, I guess let's do this. So in the theme of this episode, right, we've been doing grades. Everybody in the live chat, let's go with it. We're going on a school grading scale, right? So from an A+ all the way to an F. So A+, A, A-, B+, B, B-, so on and so forth. Everybody in the chat, what grade do you give the Von Miller signing? Kendall, we're going to start with you. Your initial statement before we went live was, I don't think people are going to like the grade that I give the Von Miller signing. What's your thoughts here? And everybody here is throwing A's up so far. So what do you got? Holy hell.
So sticker price, I wanted to give it somewhere in the B spectrum, because it's like, all right, this dude's 33 years old. We're giving him 6 years, 120 million.
He's 33 right now, or he's turning 33?
No, he's 33 right now.
Will he be 34 by the end of the year?
I don't know. That's something I'd have to look up.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, as you guys can tell, we're very raw right now. As it is, 120 over 6 years doesn't make a lot of sense.
Especially for a 33-year-old.
I am assuming that it's spread out over 6 years. That way the cap hit is more manageable now, and it's just all spread out that way. So like, if he retires when he's like 35 or 36, most of it's like guaranteed within the first 4 years. Some way to make it flexible enough where it's long enough where you can do some of that cap massaging stuff. So initially I was like, sticker price is going to be probably like a B+. But now that it's looking more like a 2 to 3 year deal with a potential out and like essentially void years at the end, like Jay Davis is saying, now I'm in the A range. And because he's 33 years old, that's like the only reason I'm going to bump it down to an A-. But you cannot deny who he is. Like, this is Von Miller we're talking about. This is someone who's still a premier pass rusher, helped the Rams this past year. Like, the dude is legit. Smiles comes in, says it's a 3-year, $53 million deal, essentially.
Appreciate the air raid, our friends from the air raid. Thank you so much. And I like the question. Is this an improvement over Jerry Hughes? And the donation. Thank you.
I
Continue,
mean,
Kendall. I'm sorry.
yes. I mean, yes, it is. Like literally all the advanced metrics that I was talking about this entire year, like Von Miller blows them out of the water. The difference is the value of it. Like we're paying so much more to get that production. So now he's got to live up to it. And I don't necessarily have doubts that he's going to live up to it. Thank you, MP Burke. That's actually huge. So he's essentially 33. He's got like 2 weeks until he's 33.
Oh, he'll be 33.
So yeah, the big thing with this is like this is an A somewhere on the spectrum. I think money and age wise, I'm going to give it an A minus, but I don't think there's really a reason to say that this is going to blow up in the Bills' face or anything like that. I think this is a slam dunk. I think Brandon Beane clearly waited things out. Like he was really long gaming this whole thing, and he got all of us. We were all on the edge of our seats all day, just like, starting the day with the JD McKissick news, him
that ruined my
and
day. He was my highest grade for here. I was so excited to talk about JD McKissick. And you know what's super funny? I kept thinking the whole time. So I was watching the Super Bowl with, I was at my dad's watching the Super Bowl. And in like the first quarter, maybe even in the second, my dad has this like habit of like, he makes a comment and then the opposite like starts to happen. So if it's like, man, like, especially when we watch baseball, he'll be like, man, so-and-so is just in such a slump. He cannot hit. And then like the next at bat is like a home run. And so we're sitting there and the Bengals are moving the ball. My dad's just like, like Von Miller just has not really made an impact for the Rams. And then like 2 plays later, sack. Right. And then he goes off in the second half. And as some people mentioned in the chat here, like he and Aaron Donald wrecked that second half for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you're spot on here with like, so let's break this down in segments, right? If we're talking from a pure on the field perspective, right? Like, cause I think this is complicated. Even again, with the contract details, we think we know what's going on 2 years or it's spread out over here. We got void years. We're going to get into all that, but from pure on the field perspective, right? And even let's break it down even more granular. Okay. For the 2022 season, Von Miller, Buffalo Bills uniform. That's an A+.
Yes.
Still one of the premium edge rushers, not even on the open market, one of the premium edge rushers in football today. Dude is a bona fide star. I mean, he was one of the leaders of those like pass rush clinics that we saw for so long. Like what they do with like tight end university now with Travis Kelce and all that. Like Von Miller was doing that with these like pass rushing summits and all this kind of stuff for like just teaching other guys. And it wasn't just like, oh, the young guys are coming. It was like legit dudes were coming to see what Von was teaching and talking about, and the ghost rush that he kind of like invented. And just, if we're talking from a pure on the field perspective, 2022, this is a home run A+. The Bills got one of, I don't know, let's be overly negative just to play devil's advocate. The Bills got what? A top 10 edge rusher in the NFL right now?
If you're being overly negative, it's top 10 even at its worst.
At its worst, he's top 10. If we're being not overly optimistic, but like regular, I guess we'll say top 7, top 6, potentially top 5. Like he's still Von Miller. Like he came back from an injury last year and was, like we said, like he was a huge difference in the Super Bowl. Then what I also like, you're going to put him into this Bills rotation. He's not, I don't think he's going to see like 70% of snaps. He's still going to get mixed in with the rest of the grouping. He'll probably see a bit more, closer to 60, maybe even above, but you still get like, not a pitch count, but you get like fresh Von Miller and all that kind of stuff. And hold on, timeout. We got a super chat donation from Ned. Ned, thank you very much for your super chat donation. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. 1, for your super chat. 2, for your comment. Ned says, just signing in, what does the Von Miller signing say about Edmonds' role? I don't know if you're in regards to the talk of Edmonds moving to edge, which I don't think was ever going to happen. I don't think that happens. I think Edmonds is safe in his role, if we're talking about a pure on-the-field role perspective, a.k.a. middle linebacker, or, I mean, I don't know, Bills play.
Might be talking about money, though.
That's fair. If you're talking about money, that's another conversation. We really have to see the confirmed. I know there's been a lot of thoughts coming into the chat with everything. We need to see the hard and fast confirmed money contract. What is it going to be? We're thinking right now, again, it's a 6-year deal, $120 million. Does it play like a 2-year deal? Does it play like a 4-year deal? How is the money laid out in each year? How much of it is backloaded in terms of specific dollars and cents each of the coming years after this year? Once we nail those things out, but I mean, I guess, Kendall, this is an interesting question. And Ned follows it up with, should have mentioned the money for not only Edmonds and for Diggs. I mean, for me, I need to see what the hard and fast numbers are. Like, we're speculating on what we think is going on in some early reports, but until you see the confirmed, like, here's the contractual breakdown and here's what it's going to be, that's what it's really going to tell. But I mean, initial reaction, right? What do you think this means for Tremaine Edmonds in terms of a money perspective? I think Diggs is a little easier. Diggs is going to be here for the long haul. If anything, they're going to extend Diggs and do it in a way to benefit the salary cap structure. And as the salary cap continues to go up in the coming years, they're going to be okay. I don't think there's any question that Stefon Diggs gets re-signed, whether it's this year, whether it's this month, next week, before the year, midseason. Stefon Diggs is going to be a Buffalo Bill for a very, very, very long time. Like, he's ingrained. He is a Buffalo Bill. He'll get extended. I'm not worried about that. Tremaine Edmonds, I think, is the more interesting conversation. What do you think it means for Tremaine in terms of his potential future with the Bills because of the money perspective?
It's one of two things. It's either they literally have to extend him now and get that cap hit down and spread it out over the years of what you would want to extend him through, or you got to find a trade partner. I feel like those are the only two options here, because I mean, obviously we don't have all the figures like we've been talking about, but I mean, 53 over 3 years, if that is what it is, all the rumors, that's still a heavy hit on year one, despite all the massaging that you could possibly do to it. So there's a ton of cap coupons out there, like Diggs, like White, like Milano. We do something with Hyde in this? Yeah, we did. Like,
yes,
this
we
morning,
did.
we did something.
We restructured basically the same thing for Hyde and Milano, where you reduced the base salary, paid into a signing bonus, which means you reduce the cap hit for 2022, and then take that signing bonus and spread it out over the future years of the contract and prorate it.
I coming into today literally saw no reason to trade Edmonds other than the benefit of getting in front of the decision and being like, he could play himself out of our price range if he does well this year. But if he doesn't do well this year, then we let him walk for literally nothing. So outside of that conversation, I didn't really see a reason to trade Edmonds, but now it's like, here's a reason. Here's like a tangible reason to get rid of this dude, because we literally have to fit under the cap. And this is a very interesting question by Ned, because I'm put on the spot here because I don't really have an answer. It's tough without knowing the
only full thing we know right now. So the official word is 6-year, $120 million deal. And then, like people have been saying, the contract will average $17.5 million per season over the first 4 years of the contract. So again, even if it's just that, you're taking him into age 36, because he's 32 right now, but you're basically taking him in age like 36, 37, pretty much end of like 36. How productive is someone going to be even in age 34 season, age 35 season? Now, if we know, not to try and look optimistically, if there is something we know about Von Miller, the work that he puts into his body and how he takes care of himself he's next level. He's upper echelon. So if there is an edge rusher that could really be productive in age 34, in age 35 season, something else, like, I think he could be a guy to do it. But the term, like, if I like the idea of it being more of like a 2-year, and then you've got some void years and you're able to spread it out and all these types of things. But again, we have to see the hard and fast numbers, the concrete details, like you mentioned. But this is a real, let's look at it from that perspective, right? Because we talked about on field 2022, A+ move, one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL, unlocks so much for your defense. This is something we talked about. And also Ned, awesome comments. One, again, thank you for the super chat, but really good thought-provoking questions. Ned. You're always on point. Like, we appreciate the hell out of you. Well done. That's a damn, I just lost it. Where is it? There it is. From Vlad. He said, can Von Miller punt? That's funny. He probably could. So on the field perspective, A+. This is a guy, we talked about edge, right? We talked about the idea of getting a proven pass rusher on the edge to go with these young guys. I got to stop. We got a super chat. Thank you, Best Highlights. One for your super chat and your donation. He comes up with and says, Danielle Hunter still or something else? I know. I think Danielle Hunter's out.
I think that's off the table now.
I think you still may see another move. I see people commenting in the chat, depending on how cheap it is. I think you could still see Jerry Hughes come back potentially, but we'll see. We have to, again, the numbers we have to see and confirm everything, but thank you for your donation and super chat there and comment. Best Highlights. We appreciate you. To go back to the Von Miller discussion, what we talked about, right? Edge. It was kind of this sneaky need because you've got Rousseau and you've got Bash and you've got Epinesa, but a lot of that is the whole well, if they take a jump or if they can, it was all these wells and hopes and optimism and wishes, which can work. I mean, that was a discussion for Dawson Knox last year. A lot of people wanted Zach Ertz. A lot of people thought, you could put your faith in Dawson Knox. And then it was well, the faith isn't an exact science, so on and so forth. But now you've got a proven guy on the edge, someone you have to account for at all times. Von Miller is that guy who can win in a hiccup. He's proven. He's got a very proven and patented repertoire of moves on the outside. He can beat you with technique. He can beat you with speed. He can beat you with power. Dude can bull rush. Dude can hit that arc and beat you around the corner. He can stop and cut inside. His hand technique, his ability to clear. Again, we mentioned the ghost rush move where, for those who don't know, it's you kind of reach out like you're about to make contact. And then when the lineman, the offensive tackle, reaches out for you, you kind of duck and disappear and go underneath him. His bend, his athleticism, his lower body, his ankle flexion, his athleticism. Again, this is a premier athlete at a premier position, which the Bills paid for, and has the potential to unlock a lot for this defense. So on the field, 2022, love it. Let's stay on the field, but let's go future. What's your thoughts and worries from a grade perspective? Not even from a grade perspective, but going into the next coming years. Again, how long is he here? As you start to get older, you have the law of diminishing returns at some point. How does that affect your overall grade, knowing his age now and how it is starting to go forward for him?
That is definitely the only reason I dropped my overall grade to A-. I shouldn't say only reason, because there are some question marks about the contract, but the age is the prevailing thought to why it goes down to A- for me, because it is a slam dunk in 2022, but 2023 and beyond, you wonder, how is he going to hold up? Like you said, he keeps his body in great shape. I mean, we know how great of an athlete he is, performing at 32 years old, coming off of a major injury, stuff like that. But edge is a position that does not age gracefully. And that's something that should be talked about, because I think we should expect good things from him this year, but we're going to expect, like you said, we should expect diminishing returns for every year after this year. I really think this is probably going to be one of his last elite seasons. And then we're going to start seeing him kind of decline into great, then good,
which
then
was even
sufficient.
some of the conversation around the Chandler Jones talk and why I would have been okay with Chandler, but I prefer the Danielle Hunter option because he's still entering he's had severe injuries the last couple of years, but he's still in his mid 20s, 27, 26, still entering his prime. Not the case with a lot of these more proven veteran guys like Von Miller. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really the point, though. It's just the main cause for concern here is just the age. That's why a lot of people were like, if we're going to take an old guy, why don't we take an old guy that's a little bit cheaper, like Jerry Hughes? So we're not really spending too much on that risk that he's just going to fall off a cliff. Because if Jerry Hughes falls off a cliff, it's $3 million, which is, pocket change to the NFL. But
yeah, we're over here just being oh, it's so it's so much.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
But when you're talking about, 17 million and he falls off a cliff, you're like, oh, wow, this could be an issue. But I don't really see him falling off a cliff. And like I said, I laid it out in a way where it's this year we see him still at that elite level. Year after that, 2023, he's still at great level. 2024, he's still at good. Then 2025, we're finally seeing some of that just sufficient. He's doing what he needs to do when he's on the field. He's on a pitch count, that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be methodical how he diminishes, because I mean, this game takes a lot out of you. And like I started with, it's not a position that ages gracefully. It asks a lot of you. You have to be really quick with your reactive athleticism and the way you're dipping and bending around those offensive tackles. And those are big dudes that you're wrestling with every single down. So I think what is fair. Yeah.
Got something.
What's up?
Got something. So a little update just to confirm what's now being reported as kind of a confirmation at this point. From Aaron Wilson. So Von Miller, 6-year, $120 million max value. The Buffalo for the Bills. The contract has a $53 million payout in the first 3 years, like has been reported. Right. $32 million fully guaranteed at signing. A $52 million deal total in guarantees and per league sources. So again, 6-year, $120 million max. $53 million paid out over the first 3 years. $32 million fully guaranteed at signing. $52 million in total guarantees. This plays out more like a 2-year, I don't know what the math is, but like a 2-year, $35-ish million deal, or maybe again, like a 3-year, $53 million deal max. So a lot of people seeing the 6-year, this isn't like a real 6-year deal. This is more like a 2-year, $3 million deal. 2-year or 3-year. That'd be awesome if it was a 2-year, $3 million deal. Oh my God, what a deal that would be. But this is more like a 2-year, 35-ish mil, 3 years, 53 mil kind of deal like that for everyone here live. Again, we've got over 400 people. Just wanted to explain that to everyone. Also, while we're here, everybody drop a like. Again, it helps us. It helps cover one. Also, let's give a like for Von Miller. Let's give a like for Brandon Beane, the whole crew, the Bills making moves, going for it, getting some bargain value deals on day 1 and day 2 of free agency, and then dropping the hammer when a free agency officially starts. 411 people in here live right now. Let's get the likes up, please. And thank you, Kendall. Continue. I apologize for interrupting you. I just want to give everybody that little breakdown.
It's very valuable information. So much so I will ask you, is it too late to change my overall grade to a flat A?
No, you may change your grade. Actually, hold on. Time out. Got to wait. Super chat. We know the rules here. Vlad, thank you so much for your super chat and your donation. Kendall, we're going to stay with you. Pivot. We're going to get back to your grade, Kendall, now that we know some more contract details. But we're going to go with Vlad here. Vlad says, who do you guys like better? Von Miller better than, are we saying Chris Jones from the Chiefs?
I think he's saying Chandler.
Oh, Chandler Jones? Oh, I don't know why I immediately thought Chris. That would have been a fun conversation, because then you're talking about interior pass rush versus edge rush. Good question, Vlad. And thank you for the super chat. And good. We're getting a lot of good thought.
Yeah, we are.
Questions in the chat tonight. Kendall, I told you I'm going to stick with you. You're on the spot. I'll answer after. Von Miller better than Chandler Jones?
I think, Von Miller is definitely better than Chandler Jones right now. I'd have to double check their ages, but I think Von Miller is like a hair younger, like maybe a year younger or something like that. Either way, I think Von Miller is performing better. I'll actually break this down because I literally had to do this like as we were getting ready for the show. Pass rush wise, Von Miller ranks tied for 10th in sacks this past year with 13. He was 5th in total pressures with 82. He was 8th in PRP, which is PFF's grade little metric that they use,
like a pass rush efficiency metric.
Essentially, it jumbles in all pressures, including sacks, relative to the amount of snaps you have. He's 8th in that at 9.1, and then his pass rush win rate is 20.4, which is 7th. So this is all at 32 years old. So that's why I'm like, okay, this dude is still elite. And Chandler Jones, I would have to go through and check all of these, but I'm pretty sure Chandler Jones wasn't ahead of him in any of those metric areas. So that's the thing for me. I think the only plus side you would have to the Chandler Jones argument is he might have been a hair cheaper per year. I think that's really the only side.
He was close though. He signed like a 17.
He was close.
Like I said, I think he was actually like a 17.5 million AAV or something like that as well.
I think at the end of the day is like, if he came to Buffalo, we might have been able to get him cheaper, because that whole like hometown coming back home thing.
They're also roughly the same age. Chandler turned 32 February 27th. He was born in 1990, so he's 32 right now. He just turned 32, so he's like a month younger. So they're roughly like the same in age.
Pretty much the same age.
Yeah.
I'm taking Von. I mean, I'm probably being a little homer now. It's kind of weird that Von Miller's homer now. But, I'm taking Von Miller. I think where they are in their career. I think there was a clear drop off in what Chandler Jones was doing this year. He had that 5-sack performance in week 1. And then after that, there really wasn't much from him. He did get COVID for a little bit, and that definitely stuck with him during the latter half of the season. But production wise, he's still great, but he's not at Von Miller's level.
Yeah, I'm going to take Von Miller as well. Again, it's close. My thing I really like Chandler Jones. I think Von Miller is more of a complete pass rusher in terms of the ways that he can win. Like, again, like we mentioned, technical. He can win with speed. He can win with power. He can win just any way that you need to. The dude, he didn't win the Super Bowl for the Rams, but he helped a lot. And then he basically won the Super Bowl for the Broncos against the Panthers. Like, he single-handedly just destroyed the Carolina offense. This dude is game-wrecking, game takeover. Chandler Jones is very good. I don't think he's to that level. And I think Von still has flashes of that in his game where he can take over and get you a 3-sack game and own it. I also think Von Miller plays the run better than Chandler Jones. But I would take Von, but a really great question. I'm sounding like friggin' Elmer Fudd over here. Great question. But really great question. Wow. Now we're going to have to get derailed. This is what happened to us last night in the film room. And it's the reason we went so long, because we got a bunch of super chats, but I will never complain because I love the engagement. I appreciate the donations and the money. Got a question here from the real Bill Myers certified. He said, great show. Appreciate you, Bill. Thank you. He says, how do they manipulate the cap to do this? And can we still get Hughes and a vet backup QB? And who might that be? Any clue? So one, you will start to see more maneuvers of money for the cap. Again, we saw what the Bills did with Hyde and Milano today in reducing their cap hit for this year. We saw the Mitch Morse extension. We saw all these different types of maneuverings that free up cap space this year or shift things down the line for guys who are going to stay. That's how you, I guess, manipulate the cap. You take the easiest ways, you take players who you know are going to be here for the lifespan of their contract. You reduce their base salary in this individual year, convert it to a signing bonus, right? So they get that check paid up front. So they get money. They're happy. They don't have to wait. They get it right now. And then you take that monetary signing bonus value and you prorate it over the lifespan of the contract and spread it out. So you get to reduce their base salary for this year, lower the cap hit, but then the cap hit in subsequent years goes up because you're spreading out that signing bonus. That's how they did it for the majority of it. That's how you manipulate the contract. That's usually also what you see with these extensions that you get. That's what we're also looking for that Stephon Diggs extension, right? Because it knocks out so many options and it ticks so many boxes. You lock up a guy who you want to be here and who's a quality guy. And then you structure the contract so that you can lower the cap hit in years where you need to, combined with the fact that you can shift the money around how you want to, and you get to lock this guy up for term. Also what needs to be included in this conversation. So that's kind of how they manipulated cap for this year. A lot of it too, we have to continue to consider. People keep talking about the money and the money. The cap is going to jump again.
Yes.
Next year, the year after. Like, it could take a 20 million jump next year. Like, we're expecting to be at least around the 220 to 230 million dollar mark after these new TV deals kick in, the Thursday night streaming options, all that stuff. The cap is going to continue to go up, which is why the Josh Allen contract, which you had to give him, also doesn't hurt as much in this conversation because the cap is going to continue to go up and up and up. So to answer your question, Bill, I know I said a lot of things there. Basically how you manipulate the cap is, you figure out ways to reduce base salary, convert it to signing bonuses, redo structural contracts in that way for guys who are going to be staying around for the lifespan of their contract. Because if you cut those guys or trade them or release them, any signing bonus money that's left over becomes dead cap and you still have to pay it because signing bonus money is guaranteed. To answer your second part, can we still get Hughes and a vet? Also, I know there's more super chats. I'm going to get to those as well. Bill, the back half here, can we still get Hughes and a vet backup QB? If Jerry Hughes comes back at his market value that's projected, so around like 3 million, 4 million, I think we can.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to how much he's going to cost. Yes, we can get a vet backup QB. I don't think someone's going to cost too much. You can get a vet backup QB for like 1.5 or 2 million bucks. Who might that be? At this point, I don't know. Like, Kyle Allen signed today. I really wanted Colt McCoy. He signed.
Yeah, he signed.
Now I think you're looking in the likes of like Andy Dalton.
Gino.
I think Fitzpatrick is still out there. there's a decent amount of backup QBs left, but I think
Jacoby
you'll definitely be able to
Brissett.
afford one. I like Jacoby Brissett. There's a decent amount back out there. Kendall, anything you want to add onto this one in terms of cap manipulation, Jerry Hughes, vet backup?
Nah, you covered it all. We got a lot of super chats to get to.
We do. I'm going through this one is just a straight up monetary donation. Thank you very much, Smedley. We appreciate you. I think there's one, and there it is, the one from Daniel. Daniel says, I feel so much better about the Bills D-line and tight ends than I did just 30 minutes ago. Again, guys, we still haven't even gotten to O.J. Howard and the rest of the grouping here. So
seriously.
hang tight. We have a lot to go over. And then he says, go Bills. By the way, great show, Anthony and Kendall. Appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you very much for the kind words there. But Kendall, I interrupted you mid-thought because I got to do it again every time I want to go to speak because I see the little flash to my right. And what do I see? I see a bright color, and that means super chat. Jason, you are always here and a constant supporter of us. So thank you as always for being here. And thank you for the super chat. He says, I like the timing of a big defensive end sign. Other defensive ends on rookie contracts. Vaughn could be, this is a great point. I saw a lot of people making it in the chat, and I love that Jason mentioned it here. Vaughn could be a good teacher, clutch in big moments. And when his contract ends, we can afford to re-sign one of our rookies if they hit. Really good point. You got Gregory Rousseau with that 5th-year option. You got Basham locked up for another 3 years if you want to invest in him. AJ Epinesa is only 2 years into his 4-year deal for his rookie contract. So, yeah, if this plays like the 2-year $35 million deal or a 3-year 53, which, again, I'm fine with. If you're paying a stud edge rusher, even if it is a 3-year deal, 3 years down the road when Vaughn is really declining, I still think he's like a top 15 top 20 edge rusher. And again, from the point of even if it's not on field, I love what Jason said. And this isn't Homer takes too, like at all, because I'm not that. I love the idea of again, this dude was running like pass rush summits for legitimate players at the edge position in the NFL. The amount of learning that's going to take place on film, in the locker room, in game, the technique talk, like, especially for a guy like Gregory Rousseau, who's so raw, who has all the physical, intangible things that you want. You're going to pair him with this stud who knows about technique, who understands the game, who has been at an MVP level, who's won 2 rings and contributed heavily. You're going to pair that guy with someone like AJ Epinesa, who's shown flashes of technique at time, combined with we've seen how AJ Epinesa transformed his body physically. We know the work ethic and the character that AJ Epinesa has. You're going to put Von Miller in that room with him. I don't know enough about Basham at this point because it's a small sample size, but the effect it'll have on Basham, we haven't even talked about the interior. Ed Oliver, the impact he has on Ed Oliver from on the field and off, like just good. That's just such a great point, Jason. And I got really excited reading that right now. Kendall, your thoughts on this as well. And then surprise, we got another super chat. So we have another question to get to.
No, this great point, Jason. This is something I hadn't even gotten to yet because we've been interrupted by so many super chats. This is why we felt an edge was so valuable to what the Bills needed to do this offseason in free agency. We know how young the position group is. We know they needed some sort of mentor, someone as an on-field mentor, not just Eric Washington. Obviously, he's the D-line coach, but you need someone on the field to help out, someone like your Mario Addisons, your Jerry Hughes. This is a step up from that. This is a huge step up from that. And furthermore, in terms of the actual Vaughn impact, I think this is such a great fit for Vaughn as he's aging because of the rotation on this line. We could squeeze so much more blood out of this stone because of the rotation, because he's about to be 33, and we'll be able to put him on a somewhat of a pitch count or use him in situational manners that is advantageous to his longevity and the Bills' current success. It's just so it's a match made in heaven. Hopefully the money side is all figured out, and I have literally no doubts of confidence in Brandon Beane that he's got the flexibility to figure that out because he's proven it pretty much every single time outside of the star contract.
And honestly, with the star contract, here's a big piece of it too, right? Like this contract wasn't,
the COVID impact.
Exactly. He wasn't still supposed to be on the books right now. Like his contract told because of the COVID opt-out. That changed everything, let alone the cap space and the cap hit and that change, right? That contract tolling changed everything. Brandon Beane is tremendously methodical with every contract that he gives out for everyone. The dude is like not even to make jokes or proverbial statements. He is the, playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers type of thing. He's thinking 4 moves ahead. He's always thinking into the future.
Always.
Like, just that's how you get set up for sustainable success in this league. And Starr's contract was supposed to be an out right now. And that's really the only albatross of a deal that's like negative really hanging around. If you want to mention, the Vernon Butler deal, but even he took a pay cut last year to stay around. Like,
that's why he was still around.
Correct. What I also like too, something we're going to get to later, maybe we won't because everything is fantastic and chaotic right now. That's why I even like the DaQuan Jones and Tim Settle signings even more, because you've bolstered the defensive line. Star Lotulelei, if you cut him now, I believe it's a $1.5 million savings. If you cut him post June 1st, it's a $4.1 million savings, right? Getting Jones and Settle allows you to sit there and be like, nah, cool, we'll keep Star. But then I don't know if Travis Jones falls to you in the second round, you can pluck Travis Jones and then you can cut Star Lotulelei after June 1st. The signing of Settle and Jones allowed you so much versatility in your roster functionality and personnel to help with that star move. And yeah, that's really been the only bad deal. Getting through more super chats because we got a lot. I like the comment here from Ron. Again, Ron, thank you so much for your donation. You're here every week. Appreciate the hell out of you and appreciate the donation as well. Thanks a lot, man. Ron says, if we sign a decent, cheap corner, guard, QB, and running back, we literally don't have any holes. We can draft literally anyone. That's the MO. We've talked about it on the show. Kendall, you and I have talked about it in the film room as well. We've talked about the idea of the Bills like to go into the draft and operate with a best player available mindset in the draft. In order to do that, you can't have any glaring holes. So they like to add a bunch of B minus, B plus guys. And that way, if an A or an A minus or an A plus guy falls, they can be like, cool, we can take him because they don't have to reach because they don't have a glaring need and they don't have a glaring hole. As of right now, I think round 1 is going to come down to a corner or a guard or a wide receiver. I'm leaning heavily towards corner. But yeah, to your point, Ron, there's a lot of cheaper deals that we can still make. And now you already had the allure of Josh Allen. You already had the allure of Sean McDermott, which I know people wanted to make a lot about, Ty Dunn's story and the 13 seconds and all that. Listen to what Isaiah McKenzie said when he said a big reason why he came back was like the coaching staff and the culture and all that stuff. Von Miller came here. That's a legit thing. Emmanuel Sanders came last year. You had the allure of the culture and the coaching staff and Josh Allen. Now you have the allure of Von Miller. Like, you're going to get these dudes. You're going to get those Miami Heat type signings that were willing to take a minimal deal to come play with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and Chris Bosh in hopes of winning a championship. So that's also a very, very big possibility. There's so many comments. Apologies to everyone who put in a super chat because I'm going through them, but I have to scroll through millions of comments. Going to Ned's first. Ned, you were crushing it tonight with your comments and your donations. Thank you very much. And Ned, Kendall, let's pivot to you here. Ned says, does this make cornerback the major focus in the draft? If so, who do you think we're targeting? I already know my answer. Kendall, you do you.
I won't steal your answer.
Well, actually, no, because there might be some debate on that answer because the whole short arms and the architect type thing, which you can speak to with how the Bills like to use for their corners.
So I think as we're sitting right now, I think cornerback is the most glaring need on this roster. We're going into the season right now with Dane Jackson as CB1, just because of where Trey White is in his recovery process. He's not going to be ready, or at least I'm not counting on him to be ready for week 1. So we're rolling into week 1 with Dane Jackson as CB1. So we got to find someone to help out at that position. I'd love to see even if it's a vet minimum signing at that position. We got to get something done in free agency to bring someone in there. Thank you, Aiden. That is a good point. We would like those likes there. We got 600 people in here right now.
Oh, hold on real quick. Andrew said, it appears Von Miller came to the Bills front office at the Combine. Maybe he's the veteran that approached the Bills. Continue. I'm sorry.
No worries. So, yeah, corner is a huge need. Even if we do get a vet min corner in free agency, we still need a rookie. Like, it is sign one, draft one. If I'm going to go within the archetype range, which is that threshold of 30-inch arms, I'm looking at Kyler Gordon. I really like Kyler Gordon's game. I like the physicality he plays with. I like the athletic upside outside of the fact that he didn't test all that well in the 40-yard dash. It shows on tape. He has closing speed, he has good footwork, and he has long enough arms. I
Mhm,
really like Kyler Gordon's game. His physicality in the run game is
mhm.
something else, and it's something we know that the Bills like from their outside corners. And in a pinch, if Teron Johnson got hurt, he could play
Yep,
nickel if he had to. So I
yep.
really like the versatility that you could get with Kyler Gordon at 25. Some people would say it's a bit of a reach, it's a bit of a projection of a pick, but I don't know. I think they could do worse.
I love that pick. I'm big on the Washington boys, McDuffie and Gordon. I got no problem with Gordon at 25 for all the reasons that you mentioned. If archetyped, be damned.
Be damned.
Don't care. Give me again. This is all based on projection. Like if Derek's if every corner is available at 25, give me Stingley, then give me Sauce. I go back and forth on who my number 3 is between Booth. Honestly, between Booth, McDuffie, and McCreary, I alternate. I will gladly take Trent McDuffie or Rodger McCreary at 25 right now. That's who I think falls into that range. We know the Bills have sat down with both of them. They've interviewed them. They've done their homework on those guys. They've drawn some things up on the whiteboard with them, which is significant for the Bills coaching staff. But I think you got to factor in the versatility, who's going to be there, one, who's going to be available at 25, and then factor in the versatility, factor in the scheme fit. So that would be the 3 that I think would be on the board there from a target perspective. McDuffie, McCreary, Gordon. I would prefer McDuffie or McCreary, but based on archetype, like Kendall mentioned, I think you could make the case that Gordon is ahead of them, and I still have no problem with Gordon there. I would love Gordon in the second round. I don't think he's going to be there because of the tape, because of the offseason that he's had. I just don't think it's going to be there. Mike, no comment, just straight money. Appreciate you, Mike. Thank you for the
Mike.
$20. Really, really appreciate that. And thank you for being here. And we got another, this is an awesome comment from Aaron. He said, bean counts every blueberry and every muffin. I appreciate you tying it back to my intro for every episode. And I love that. And that's from the movie Casino. And if people don't know that, that's okay. But I would appreciate it if you did. Going to another super chat. It disappeared from the top. So now I have to scroll until I see.
I got it.
You got it? Grab it.
Smedley coming in, Bean going all in, and it's all on Josh Allen now more than ever. I like our chances. For everyone that says the Super Bowl window ended the second we extended him and his money goes on the books, this is evidence. This is evidence that is not true. The window is open as long as 17 is under center and he's bringing people to Miami. Like you said, that analogy, it's true, man. He is becoming that kind of guy where people want to come play with this guy. They see the fire and the passion that he plays with, and the Bills are going to be contenders because of him as long as he's in Buffalo.
I think Brandon Beane was just really disrespected and pissed off from J.D. McKissick. And so he was like, screw it. You know what?
You know what? I'm going all in.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make a move. Screw you, J.D. McKissick. I got something for you. Boom, Von Miller.
Thanks for that money back.
Yeah, right. Thank you for the cash, J.D. McKissick. But running back is still in need. I'm still very sad about J.D. McKissick, regardless of the Von deal. But again, we're all sitting here talking about this like this is a big move, a home run move. I know there are some reservations like we talked about. Von is 32 right now. He'll be 33 shortly. You see the amount of money, the long term of the contract. But like we talked about, $17.5 million. Hold on, I have it back in my notes. 17.5 over the first 4 years of the contract. And then it averages out to, basically averages out to like a 2-year, $35 million deal, a 3-year, 53. Again, saving money is fantastic, but the aggressiveness is awesome. And like we've seen with Brandon Beane, his ability to structure contracts and lay them out to the point where they can bring in quality players and not destroy their future, not destroy their current makeup and their current build. I wouldn't doubt that there's some detail that still hasn't been leaked yet where it's like, oh my God, this contract's even better. Like all this type of stuff. Like from an on the field perspective, this is an A+ home run in 2022. When you factor in how the contract works, again, 17.5 mil averaged over the first 4 years. comes out to like a 2-year, $35 million deal or a 3-year, $53 million deal. The value is just great. And then if again, you're going on field in 2023, 2024, maybe he's still here in 2025, but probably not. I still think you're getting a quality guy. And again, even when his physicality starts to decrease a little bit, the speed or the strength, he's got the technique and the awareness and the mental side. He's that guy who he's like a pitcher to me who can throw like 97, 98, but then when he can't anymore and he throws like 92, 93,
it's the control and the placement.
Yep. And he can still just pitch. He doesn't need to beat you with the 97-mile-an-hour heater. Why? Because he also has a slider and a changeup and a breaking ball and maybe a 2-seam fastball. He just pitches. Like the ability to continue because you've had the ability to hone your craft because you have a skill that is now real in your mind combined with that awareness. Like he's a guy who, again, like we can't talk about it enough. He is one of those people who perfects his craft, like the craft of being a professional football player. Those guys like Peyton Manning, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, those dudes that are students of the game and hone their craft. Like it's not just a job. It's not just a sport. They hone their craft. Mm-hmm. That's what Von Miller is. That's what gives me some of that confidence going forward, even when he starts to get a little older. Kendall, I'm way behind in the chat. If you're closer and you see any of these super chats that are popping up, there's 2.
So here's the first one. Cole Shoney for pick 7, trade up for a top CB. It's kind of crazy with the way that obviously we just went all in for this pick or for this signing for Von Miller. I'm not throwing anything off the table. I was not a fan or an advocate for trading up in the draft, but after this kind of move, it kind of tells you the all-in nature that they may be putting forward for 2022. So it's possible. I'm not necessarily an advocate for it yet, but I see it as a much more probable possibility than I ever did before this signing. You know, it's always been safe. It's always been value. It's always been calculated. Now we're kind of getting to that point where Bean is going for it. He's really going for it. He wants to violently get over the hump and go for it. And I think trading up in the draft is another way to do it. So we'll see if he does that. And we know he's got the relationship with Joe Shane. So we'll see. We'll see.
Go after it. I mean, I got no problems trading up and trying to grab Stingley or Sauce. That would be fantastic. Again, I want to clarify for everyone because we're still getting people who are trickling in late. We're up to 670 live viewers here. Drop that like, please, and thank you. Got 670 in. Just click that like. It's super easy. Just do it right now. But again, Von Miller's contract. It's so wild to read it. It's a max 6-year, $120 million deal. He will average $17.5 million per season over the first 4 years of the contract. But the way it is broken down, the way it comes out, it's got a $53 million payout in the first 3 years, $32 million fully guaranteed at signing, $52 million in total guarantees. So the deal really plays out like a 2-year, $35 million deal, a 3-year, $53 million deal. Got to do some more calculations and see what the cap hits are. Again, this is the craziness of going live. Haven't been able to sit and crunch the numbers and look at everything. We're reacting to it live just like you are. It'd be nice if they could keep that cap hit below 10 for 2022. If they could finagle some way out of that, that would be nice, which I think is a possibility given what they've done and how the contract structure is laid out. But I really got to sit down and crunch the numbers. Silas, I'm going to bring up your comment because I appreciate you. And I appreciate the super chat. Last night, you were very vocal in the film room about not liking J.D. McKissic. I just want to say that, so for those listening, Silas says, I told you we didn't need no McKissic. Send us to Lombardi now. Forget McKissic. How big is this for Groot, AJ, and Bookie? They get to learn from one of the greatest. Teams are afraid. I don't want to say we didn't need McKissic. Like, it's not like the Bills bailed on him. He bailed on the Bills. Like, he wanted to stay in Washington match. So good for them. He gets to stay where his heart is. He wanted to stay there. I still think you're undervaluing J.D. McKissic. He would have been a perfect complementary piece in this offense. His skill set, his ability out of the backfield, his ability to run routes, his functionality in the slot and out wide, his receiving ability, his running ability is underrated. I still would gladly take J.D. McKissic right now. But to the back half of your point, like we talked about, this is huge for Groot, AJ, and Boogie. They get to learn from one of the best. They get to learn from somebody who, again, honed his craft on the field, off the field, because that's a big part with being a pro, right? Like, it's not just what you do on the field. It's adjusting to life as a professional athlete, regardless of the sport. It's a change in schedule. It's a change in mentality. How do you operate every day? What do you do in the off season? What kind of training regimen are you on? What kind of diet are you on? How do you practice? What kind of things do you engage in on the field and off the field? Again, everything. How do you train? What do you do? There's a lot of different types of like exercises, practices, drills, techniques, a lot of different things you can practice, right? Now you've got a guy who's been there, done that, honed his own stuff, regimen and repertoire. He gets to pass that on to these young guys. I think, yeah, Silas, we talked about it earlier. It's huge for Groot, AJ, and Boogie. They get to learn from legitimately one of the best edge rushers. You could make the case if you wanted to throw him in there like of all time. Like he's a really quality guy. I don't know where he's going to fall in all time, but the fact that he's even in that conversation, he's a Hall of Famer. He will be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. And I mean, there's a chance that he finishes his career out in Buffalo. And again, this dude has 2 rings. He just won one. He's still right now, this very moment. Again, we're not talking about the future. We're not talking about the money, which we already have multiple times in the show. Right now, 2022, he's at worst, top 10 edge rusher in football. One of the premier players in the NFL. He chose to come to the Buffalo Bills. Think about that. He chose. He wants to get another ring. He can go anywhere. He can coast. He can coast if he wants to. Man, I got 2 rings. I'm paid. I got endorsements. You know what? I'm going to go play in Miami because I want to live in Miami. You know what? I liked LA. I get to play with Aaron Donald. LA's beautiful. You can get a baller house out there in the hills. I'm going to stay in LA. I'm going to do that. He came to Buffalo. He chose to come to the Buffalo Bills. And for people who are going to try and jump in and be like, well, I mean, the Bills gave him a lot of money. You don't think there were other teams out there trying to give Von Miller that kind of money?
I'm sure he was offered more than what the Bills gave him.
Look what the Jags paid for Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. You don't think there were teams out there ready to drop big-time buku dollars on Von Miller to come anywhere? Come on. Like, he chose. Granted, is he getting paid? Yes. He chose to come to Buffalo. That is a huge piece that we cannot look over too much. But we've talked about Von Miller. Let's move on to another one. Right? Let's move on to OJ Howard, who, because things have moved so fast, I haven't been able to create a little banner at the bottom for OJ Howard, a little peek behind the 4th wall. But guess what? I did it while I was talking. Boom, OJ Howard. Let's talk about it. Kendall, you reported the deal earlier. I think it's like a 1 year up to $3.5 million.
No, it's up to 5. It is 3.5. It's 1 year, 3.5. That is up to 5 mil. So I think that's good value for someone who's a former 1st round pick. Obviously, he's kind of fizzled out. You could label him a bust, but here's the reclamation project. This is what Bean loves to do. He loves to find these guys that need to have that redemption arc in their career, come to Buffalo, be the best version of yourself, and find some value in a guy that used to be great. It's kind of what we hoped we were going to get from Vernon Butler, but that Vernon Butler deal was pretty expensive. Like on the front end of it, that was not a deal where we're like, okay, this is a redemption project here. We're not really paying you a lot to be what you are. We're paying you a lot because of what we think you can become. This is like we're paying OJ Howard what he is currently worth, and he could exceed that this year. So I like it for that reason. The Texans paid Pharaoh Brown more to be their tight end too, I believe. So, I mean, the tight end market has been weird so far. So to get a guy like OJ Howard with that kind of name recognition, I think that's a good deal. Taylor comes in here and says that Howard is better than Disley. I think name-wise, Howard is bigger than Disley. But, I mean, from film breakdown and as much confidence as I have in Eric didn't like the Howard tape that he broke down.
Howard is still very much a ball of untapped potential, I guess you could say, of traits of he's got speed, he's got size, he's got athleticism, but he just has not been able to put it all together. He has not been able to connect to that. Silas,
and
I know
Cromer could be big on that.
Could be huge on that. Silas, I know you have another super chat. I'm going to get to it in a minute. Just wanted to continue the OJ Howard talk. Actually, no, I can't do that. We got to stop. That would violate the rules. The rules of the super chat gets pulled right away. Silas, Your generosity is super appreciated. And you being here every week, like, your energy is great, and your thought-provoking stuff is great. And Silas says, Bean and Frazier are defensive back savants. We don't need Sauce Gardner. I'd like to get him, but we can get guys on day 2 and 3 with physical traits that can be coached up. Britt, McCollum, Woolen, Taylor, rounds 2 through 5. I think Alani Taylor is more. I want to move him to safety. I don't feel confident in him in corner, but I like his traits. He's fast. He's physical. He's got some really flashy plays. He's not technically where I'd like him to be. And he's got some stiff hips, but he's fast, straight line speed. He can thump. I'd like to move him to safety. He has the body and the skill set for it. I like Cam Taylor Britt a lot. McCollum and Woolen are very interesting, especially with the buzz that Woolen has garnered recently from his combine standout and just the measurables and all that stuff. My only issue is I know they can coach those guys up. I still want as much of a proven product from a rookie as possible. And what's nice is if you get a corner in round 1, you get that contract benefit of the 5-year contract, 4 years, but basically guaranteed, like the 5th-year option. You get to have a guy on an affordable deal, an efficient deal with all this other money being spread around. Now you've got a long-term pairing partner with Tre'Davious White, Taron Johnson. That eases the transition out of the safeties, whatever happens with Hyde and Poyer. But I like where your head's at.
Yes.
Kendall, we've been talking about corners a lot. What are your thoughts on that? Do you want to target? I know you want to target a corner in round 1 like I do, but how do you feel not doing that and going, kind of day 2, day 3 type stuff?
Yeah, exactly like you said. I would like to do it round 1 because we know how good they are at coaching these guys. Imagine how good they would be coaching a guy with all the athletic traits that would garner a first-round pick. So that to me is really exciting, and I would hope that we could duplicate that with what we did with Trey White. So it would be awesome to have 2 of those guys, a caliber, someone of that caliber that we can coach up to be even better than what they were when they were drafted. But Silas is right. I mean, we've done it with Levi Wallace. We've done it with Dane Jackson. We can turn guys that aren't looked at as valuable commodities, guys that are day 3 picks, or even as Levi was undrafted, and turn them into sufficient plus players at the position. So I think he brings a very good point. It's not something we need to do, like going up and trading up for a cornerback is not needed. It's not necessary given our track record of coaching up this position, but there is appeal to it. So I think both sides have valid points here. There's logic to both sides, but I totally understand what Silas is getting at here, and I agree with it completely. I don't really have a side to pick.
That's fair. I get what he's getting at, and same like with, we can take kind of Cole and shine it up a little bit. I just want more rock, paper, scissors ability and more versatility, which is why I want more of a top end guy. Because if you take, it's nice to take like a 4 and turn it into a 6 or a 7. I want to take a 7 or an 8 and turn it into a 10 or above.
Yeah.
And I want to create that plus matchup, that scheme versatility
Exactly.
piece. But I recognize the notion. And again, it's all about value and it's all about what you can fit. You're not going to have all pros everywhere, but give me some more resources allocated to the corner position. I want a corner in round 1. I want a round 1 corner, not just to take one. I want one of the guys who, we've scouted and talked about for various reasons because of skill set and trait and fit and all that kind of stuff. Another comment here in Super Chat from Bills from Best Highlights. Appreciate the donation again. He says, do you see the Bills going after a running back? I most definitely do. Whether I don't think it could be in the draft again, I guess. I see it happening in free agency. The fact that, again, the Bills had McKissick in their grasp, and then Washington matched it. McKissick didn't want to leave. The fact that they already did that makes me think they think a complementary piece to the backfield is needed. I do see them most definitely going after a running back. The running back room as it stands right now, I don't think will be the running back room come start of the season. There will be 1, maybe even 2 additions to the backfield. What do you think there, Kendall?
I could definitely see sign and draft. Realistically, I think it's going to be sign or draft, but I think it's completely plausible that it is sign and draft. There are so many guys that are still available. Those KC guys, Darrell Williams and JD, not JD McKissick. Wow. Jerick McKinnon. They're still out there. Raheem Mostert on the injury reclamation project. Justin Jackson, who we highlighted in the film room, is more of a receiving back. Marlon Mack on that injury reclamation. There's so many guys. Rashad Penny, another injury reclamation.
I like Penny.
And then high end, the Cordero Patterson, which I think is becoming less and less likely with the money that we've spent.
You know what's funny with the Patterson one? Patterson is intriguing to me if they use him as a receiver and running back, and then you kill two birds with one stone, and maybe even returner, and then you try to combine like three positions into one for the
I've been
value.
preaching
But
this for
it's
like 4 years and it just hasn't
no,
happened.
it hasn't. And
They want to be like really inefficient with their
they're
roster
siloed.
construction in
They
that
like to
way.
be siloed in that
Yeah,
way.
it's
And
really
also,
weird.
I still think he's going to command a decent buck. And
Mhm.
then when I had Aaron Freeman on to preview the Bills Falcons game earlier in the year, he's super connected with everything going on with Atlanta. And Cordero Patterson, from what he gathered at that time, granted things may have changed. This was back in December. Patterson wanted to stay in Atlanta. He likes the franchise. He likes the city. He likes living there. I expect him to stay there, but you never know.
Yeah, you never
Another
know.
super chat donation from AK Cash. He says, Groot, Jordan Phillips, Oliver, Von Miller, bye-bye AFC East QBs. He said Ryan Talbot said his sources
Yeah, I
say
saw
Jordan
that too.
Phillips' signing is true. I don't know how I feel about it for Jordan Phillips. I tweeted some stuff out earlier. He was injured the last couple of years. Not a tremendous amount of production since leaving Buffalo. And actually, if I pull it up right now, as I stall for time for me to pull this tweet out, because I tweeted a whole bunch of Von Miller stuff and I got to scroll back over his. So 2 seasons in Arizona, 18 total games, 9 each, 5 total sacks, 24 total pressures, 22 tackles, 22 stops. He had a knee injury, a hamstring injury. He started this past year on injured reserve. He only saw 26.1% of snaps in 2021, 24% of snaps in 2022. Now, injuries are playing a part there. He also, maybe he wasn't comfortable from a scheme perspective, a fit perspective, maybe even a culture standpoint. You know, he mentioned multiple times in these cryptic Instagram posts, maybe not even cryptic, they seem pretty direct, that he wanted to quote unquote come home. So, you know, the mental side of it, again, like from a professional standpoint, that affects you. Like if you're not comfortable in the city that you're in or with how you're feeling off the field, that affects your performance on the field. So maybe he comes back. And again, you know, like we talked about with OJ Howard, which we're going to continue talking about now, you know, come to Buffalo and become the best version of yourself. If the best version of himself is a guy who produced double-digit sacks in this defense, I'm fine welcoming him back in. Yeah, we'll see if it drops officially and then we get numbers and contract and value, which always comes in. Super chat from Silas. Silas says, y'all want to run it back? Bring back Fred for this ring run. That's mad funny. I would bring him back in a heartbeat. I'd love for him
That'd be hype.
to get a ring. Oh, here's one from Q Trucker. Thank you very much for your super chat. He says Raheem Mostert is a good back to take a risk on. Here's why I'd like this. One, he's got speed for days.
Yes.
Although I am very concerned about the injury history, which he gets a lot of them, and they're significant. The speed and the zone running ability. And if the Bills are shifting to this zone running ability, which they may under Coach Cromer, even though Cromer can do gap as well, but you see the Cromer hiring, you see the Rodger Saffold signing, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. If they're moving to zone, Raheem Mostert as the 1B or the backup with his speed and zone running ability, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
Back to you, Kendall, OJ Howard. We started to touch on it a little bit. A guy who, honestly, all the physical tools, tremendously athletic, a tight end that was very sought after coming out of the draft, coming out of Alabama. He was kind of like that next potential do-it-all tight end.
Yep.
Comes from a great program. Hasn't really been able to put it all together in the NFL so far.
I think that's the appeal, though, to him. It's the fact that he was looked at so highly as that do-it-all tight end, and that's what we wanted, you know, when people were trying to wrap their head around bringing Gronk in as tight end too. This is kind of that same idea where it's a guy that you can roll out there in 2 tight end sets where he can do it all. You don't know just because there's a second tight end. You don't know that if there's a second tight end out there that they're automatically going to run the ball, because with OJ Howard and Knox on the field, we know Knox is a capable blocker. He's improved tremendously in that area. Howard has the physical tools to be better in that area. And like I alluded to earlier, I think Cromer could have a huge influence on him improving in this area. But furthermore, OJ Howard is a good and established pass catcher, even with all of the bumps in the road that he's had. That's been the one like glaring area that you can kind of look back on and be like, this dude still has potential. He can give us something in the pass game. So I think it's intriguing from that standpoint. You can roll out 12 personnel and defenses aren't going to know what's coming. They're not going to know if it's run or pass. That play action out of 12 personnel, I'm expecting a lot of this year. And I think it's going to be deadly. I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see what the Bills development group does with OJ Howard, because there's
I
a
love
ball of
that.
clay.
I love that you said that. Like I'm not this over here like you have to run 12. I want to see 12 personnel. But we talked about through the season and through the offseason, a part of the reason why Gabriel Davis was such a big boon for this offense, because his blocking ability allowed the Bills to give different looks. And it would be like, oh, okay, this is going to be a pass. And then it was like, nope, he's run blocking. And then it was like, oh, here comes the run because he's run blocking. And it was like, nope, he faked it. He's going to go out and run a route.
There's no tendency giveaway with OJ Howard.
Yes. And when you can, the name of the show is Disguise Coverage, and it's from a defensive perspective. But flip side, no pun intended, when you can disguise your looks on offense, and you can keep a defense off balance, and they don't know where the run is coming, where the pass is coming, what's going on. If they can't clue in, if they can't match tendencies and kind of figure out and connect the dots, that's a huge advantage for an offense, especially when you've got one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL and a tremendous receiving core and all these weapons and all this stuff, right? So the idea of 12 personnel is so fun. If that's what made, the Patriots, as much as we hate them, with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez,
they were deadly.
They both could run block. They both could pass catch. Like, you didn't know what was coming. And so every time Brady snapped it from under center and turned his back, you couldn't fully commit to the run because you had to honor the two tight ends that were running routes. Like, and that is so much, because in the NFL, everybody's so good and they're so fast. And if you hesitate for a quarter of a second, you're done. You're done. If you hesitate for the slightest moment and stop and go, is this going to be a run or a pass? Oh, crap. You're done. Guys ran by you. It's over. Or you just got smacked and it's over. Like, so to make defenses have to pause, to make them have to prepare for that, even if they have to spend an extra hour and a half or 2 hours during the week on this package or this personnel or this threat, it's a tremendous thing if the Bills can run 12 regularly. I like the move from the idea of come to Buffalo, become the best version of yourself. We saw Dawson Knox's progression. Like you mentioned, if Howard can make a similar jump, cool. And again, it's low risk.
It's very low risk.
If OJ Howard comes out and he's terrible, okay, he's gone after 1 year. If not, and he does well, cool. Maybe he sticks around for a bit of the long haul, or maybe you move on from him again and you continue this revolving door for the tight end 2 position, and maybe guys want to continue to come because it was like, well, what they talked about with Trubisky, maybe it's like that for tight ends. And someone's like, well, Dawson Knox is sweet, and then OJ Howard kind of redid his career. I'm going to go to Buffalo and be tight end too.
Exactly.
Like, low risk and potentially high reward. I think if you're using OJ Howard as your tight end too, especially from a 12 personnel pass route running perspective, he's still, from a talent perspective and athleticism and athletic profile and skill set, he's still a mismatch for linebackers. So now, like, I love the idea of going up, this is just one team, but like going up against the Patriots and running 12, like, okay, like cover Jordan Howard with your linebackers, or I'm sorry, OJ Howard with your linebackers, like, and then try and cover Diggs without JC Jackson. Not that JC Jackson had a ton of success with that anyway, but go ahead and try and do that. The mismatch potential, the versatility. Again, we've talked about it on this show from a defensive perspective. Rock, paper, scissors, right? Having 12 personnel is another part of that. So maybe OJ Howard is only seeing like 10 snaps a game for most games, but then there's a matchup where the scouting report is like, this team really struggles against 12, and all of a sudden you jack him up to 25 snaps or 30 snaps, and you change it and you rotate and you move in and out. So from that perspective, really, really like that move. Again, I don't love where he's been in his production, but if they can make him the best version of himself, as a lot of people, like to say when guys come to Buffalo, I think that's very cool. Let's pivot to another guy. We're going to stick on the offensive side of the ball. We just talked about it a little bit when it came to running back. Let's go with Mr. Rodger Saffold. We broke down a lot of film on him last night. What grade do you give Mr. Rodger Saffold?
This one's tough because I'm not expecting this to be like multiple years or anything, right? Yeah. Isn't it like a 1 year with a void or something like that?
It is. And he basically, Rodger Saffold basically came out, and his exact words, I still may be paraphrasing, but I'm pretty sure his exact words were, the second year is basically a formality. Like, it's just contractual language. It's a 1 year deal. Now, he's in tremendous shape. He's got tremendous durability, and he loves Coach Cromer. Maybe he stays around for a couple years, but as of right now, we're just looking at a 1 year deal, basically.
For that reason, I'm going to give it a B+. I think it's a great fit with the Cromer history and where we want to go with this zone running and his prowess in run blocking and stuff like that. But those slight reservations I have as a pass blocker, and the age and the fact that he's really only going to be here for 1 year guaranteed. That's the reason it gets bumped down to a B plus, but I think it is firmly B plus at its floor. I think it's a great signing. It was at a good value, especially for the level of play that he has been at. Hasn't let up many sacks. I'm pretty sure he only allowed 2 sacks last year. Pressures are a different animal. He's allowed a bit more pressures, but he's still a good player, gets out of the blocks quickly, like we covered last night on the film room. Really great zone run blocker. And I think he's going to be huge for our running game, which needed a jolt of energy this offseason. And it got it a little bit last year with Ryan Bates, but this is an extra jolt of energy that I think is going to go a long way for this year.
I agree. I want to answer 2 questions. One, Ron says, is Bryce Callahan still available? Last time I checked, yes. Give me Bryce Callahan. I'm still all aboard that train. Give him to me. And Andrew asked, are the corners that will likely be left at pick 25 day 1 starters? Yes. I have no problem starting McCreary or McDuffie or Booth or Sauce or Stingley. They're not going to be there at the beginning. But McCreary, McDuffie, Kyler Gordon, I think
those top 6 guys are all day 1 starters.
Agree. I would love to pair them with a veteran and do a little rotation and ease them in, so they can dip their toe in the water without cannonballing right into the deep end. But yes, they are day 1 starters. And back to Mr. Rodger Saffold. I went back and forth with this one. I'm going to give him a B, mainly because now we're going just on. I guess we really should just on a 1 year. I flirted with the idea of a B plus because I like his running or his run block, his running. Actually, if we gave him the ball,
I mean, he does run well.
He does run well. He explodes for it. If we gave him the ball, that'd be sick. If we know that we're going to be a zone scheme team, this cranks up for me. And indications are, if we know, but if just because I like to play devil's advocate, you never know. I'm going to stick with a B because I do have some concerns with his lateral agility, like we talked about last night in the film room. Also, not just to plug it because we did it. If you guys are here now and didn't watch our film room episode last night, please go and do so. We broke down Rodger Saffold, DaQuan Jones, Tim Settle. We went through multiple highlights of them showcasing their traits, their skill sets, their fit, why the Buffalo Bills went after them, all that kind of stuff. So tune into the film room for some breakdown on that. But I do worry a little bit about his footwork in pass protection. But again, it's a little bit. I think this is a good signing. I love his attitude. I love his durability, knock on wood. I love his power and his strength and his hand technique. I love his veteran presence and his leadership. This is the dude who you hear him speak and he just sounds like a pro. Like he just sounds like a professional football player. And I think that's awesome to have dudes like that in the room, especially when you put him between Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse, which also that affected his pass protection last year. Like inconsistency at left tackle with Taylor Lewan going down. Now you put him with more stability at left tackle with Deion Dawkins, one of the best centers in the game, and Mitch Morse, especially from a mental perspective. Now all of a sudden, maybe his game takes a jump. The connection with Coach Cromer. I think this is a solid B. I could kick it up to a B plus. But I was pleased with this signing when I tweeted out my interest in him when he was released by Tennessee. I like the fit. I like the idea of him coming in and strengthening the offensive line and his presence, all that stuff. So this is a very solid B for me. Now, go to the defensive side. Mr. DaQuan Jones, an Eric Turner favorite, another person we broke down in the film room last night. What grade do you have for Mr. DaQuan Jones?
On field, I want to give this a B, but the contract, I want to give it a B minus. With it all in together, I think it's a good play. I think it's good for the team. It's good for the rotation. It's good for run defense. He's a really well-rounded player, despite, some deficiencies in pass rushing. He's still capable. Like if he's on the field and there's a passing down, he can still get after it enough. Yes. And that's kind of really all you're hoping for with him. But yeah, that's kind of where it comes down to with me giving it a B minus. It's that contract. When I saw the sticker price, and then obviously as we got into the details of it, it just seemed like a little bit too much money for someone on the wrong side of 30 and who's going to be in a rotation, who's going to be more of a heavy run down kind of player. But when we broke down the film last night, On
Mm,
field impact, I really like what he can do. So he is firmly in the B range when it's talking about on field. Like, he is going to give us good snaps. He's going to give us good value in that room. He's going to help everyone in the interior defensive line room. I think he's going to be valuable in that regard.
mhm.
Um,
Agreed.
so yeah, I think really the only thing giving me reservations, dropping it down to a B minus, is that contract. I worry if he'll be able to live up to it through
Mm.
2 years of it.
That's a very good point. We didn't really have a ton of contract details for Rodger
Not a ton.
Saffold. We have some for DaQuan Jones. So it's a 2-year, $14 million deal with 10.6 guaranteed. I struggled with this one as well because from an on-field fit perspective, we've been talking about it all off season, the whole two
Mhm.
gapping defensive tackle, two gapping defensive tackle. It's a B plus for me. I think
Right.
he plays his role very well. We showed it last night in the film room. He's constantly splitting double teams. He's bending the knee. He's strong at the point of attack. He's he's swimming over guards and then spinning out of backside blocks from tackles and making plays in the backfield. Like, his tape was my favorite that we went over
Oh,
last night.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he was my favorite tape from yesterday, without a doubt. It was so impressive. The ability to shed and make plays in the run game was
Yes.
nutty.
And again, his niche and his role is something the Bills need. You've got
Yeah.
somebody who can anchor down at one tech, but who can also kick into a 3, a 2-eye, play some
Mhm.
nose, who can do so many things along the defensive line. He's got versatility, but that number one point of physicality and two gapping presence on the interior, that spine of the defense, to make things easier for the defensive line, to make things easier for the second level. Ed Oliver was top 5 in double team rate last year,
Can't happen.
constantly just getting hit with by two guys left and right. Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, linemen, are always getting to the second level to get at these guys. DaQuan Jones helps that a ton. The contract, I don't love it, but I understand where it came from because of the need and necessity.
Yeah,
So from a
exactly.
pure on the field perspective, I'm B plus. With contract, I'm a little more towards a B.
Mhm.
I'm still going to lean B plus because I think the impact on the
Okay.
field unlocks Oliver,
Yes.
Milano, Tremaine Edmonds, the safeties, anybody who comes in the box to make a play. I think everybody just got better.
Yes.
And not because DaQuan Jones is this elite guy. Like, and I feel like people will come through and be like, well, if he's so great, how come he only got this much money? Or how come he didn't stay around it? Or how come I haven't heard of him before? So on and so forth. He is really, really good at the role the Bills need him to
Yep.
be really good at, which is a two-gapping physical presence on the inside interior of the offensive line to help unlock his peers. He's a guy who, when he's cooking and doing well, actually, you probably will see him make plays in the backfield, but he might not be showing up on the stat sheet.
Mhm.
But Edmonds will show up more. Oliver will show up more. The defensive ends will show up more. He's a domino piece for others' success around him, which is the reason I gave him a B plus. And I know I'm so behind in the chat, but everybody keep throwing your grades up for all these guys. Man, the chat is awesome tonight.
Yeah,
I'm seeing a
buzzing
lot of
tonight.
B's for our last two. Yeah, the chat has been really, really great tonight. You guys are fantastic. Another defensive tackle, Tim Settle, who, and this is what we talked about last night. Commenter from Ron, Settle's a great signing. Hopefully he passes physical. The idea of Settle and Jones in conjunction, they allow for that
Mhm.
rotational piece. The idea that, DaQuan is really good against the run and can pass rush, and Tim Settle is better in pass rush and can defend the run. They're not polar opposites, but they can finagle and mix and match as a defense. Again, this is what we're all about with the versatility, chess
Yep.
match, rock, paper, scissors, shoe type thing. And Settle did some things that when we went to the film room last night, he popped in a lot of good ways. He's raw, he's still potential based, but he's got violent hands. He's nimble on his feet and
Mhm.
he's athletic. You see the ability pop left and right, when you watch him. He's fluid in his upper body, he's fluid in his lower body. And he's a guy who a lot of people in the Bills signed him. One, Washington fans weren't happy.
They were not.
Two, a lot of people who watched him were like, hey, this is a guy who could really pop. Like, he can fulfill his potential. If he gets more reps, he could be really great, so on and so forth. I'm not putting all my eggs into that basket. I gave this signing a B minus just because of where he is now. That's where I'm grading it. But I think he has a very legitimate potential of getting to a B plus. by mid-year, end of year, with his skill set, with the rotation, with the development. And I feel bad giving it a B- because I really like this move. And if I'm putting it in conjunction with DaQuan Jones, it's an easy B for me. Maybe even pop it up, because again, it just gives you another bullet in the holster, another card to play for you to continue to play rock, paper, scissors, shoe on defense. And then you combine that with, again, his ability to leverage gaps, his quickness, his burst. We talked about it last night in the film room, the way he gets off at snaps, like that pop, that explosion. He's constantly driving offensive linemen back into the backfield because of that ability to maintain leverage and convert speed to power. So an exciting guy. I like this signing, especially in conjunction with Jones. What's your grade and what's your thought on Mr. Tim Settle?
So you went B-, right?
I did go B-. Oh, and also if we're talking about contract, because there were numbers for this, 2 years, $9 million, $7 million guaranteed, 4.05 in signing bonus, a 2022 base salary of 1.035 million, and a 2023 base salary of 3.055 plus a $250,000 roster bonus. I gave him a B-, but I could also go B.
Yeah, so it's funny. We literally just flip-flop this. I have Settle as a B, and it's because of that potential. It's literally the potential mixed with the contract. The reason I had DaQuan Jones as a B- was not because what he currently is. It's because he is currently better than Tim Settle. He is the better player right now, and in any objective metric for it, he's just better at what he does. But the value play that you're getting from Tim Settle as a 25-year-old when the year starts,
good point,
and you're not paying him all that much, and he could wind up being, once the second year of this contract starts, he could wind up being a steal on this contract.
He could be an A by year 2, like the
Exactly.
legitimate potential's there.
So that's why I have DaQuan Jones as a B- and Settle as a B. Neither of them really like push the needle to, oh, we're winning the Super Bowl now. But those are really great complementary pieces to the interior, exactly, of that defensive line. Like you alluded to earlier, they both complement each other very well because their deficiencies is where the other one is strong. It really works well, both of them playing off of each other. And I think the big thing with Settle is, as great as he is against the pass, you'll see it in the film room if you guys go back and watch it. Although he wasn't making plays in the run game, you can see he wants to and he understands how. He just couldn't physically put it together, but you could see that he was doing all the right things. It was just putting it all together. There's just something that's quite not connecting, and hopefully he can untap that. But I have confidence that he can, because he showed a lot of reasons why he can. So I have a lot of confidence in that pick. I really hope it actually officially gets announced. I'm getting a little nervous that these Commanders want to go back to Washington for whatever reason. I really like this Tim Settle one. I think it's going to be a value after this year. We're going to really realize that potential in him, and I'm giving it a hard B.
Fair. One that I want to talk about that I guess technically counts as a free agent signing. It's a re-signing. The Bills brought Isaiah McKenzie back, and that's part of this. But I want to talk about the wide receiver room, because we continue to talk about it, but Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley aren't the same player, and that's not a knock against either of them. But we'll let you go first here. With Isaiah McKenzie coming back, the wide receiver room, how do you view it right now? We've got Cole Beasley, who was given permission to seek a trade, which makes you really feel like he's not coming back, although he could potentially come back. And then you've got McKenzie right now, who, if Beasley's gone, Isaiah McKenzie is the number 3. What do you think about this wide receiver room? How do they continue to attack this in free agency? What do you think the draft starts to shape up? Because this is a very deep wide receiver class in this draft. You could get a gem on day 2, in round 2 or 3. So what are your thoughts here on the wide receiver room, given its current construction and all the newsworthy stories that continue to happen?
It's interesting. It's really interesting. I don't know what the plan is with Beasley, but I'll put it this way: if McKenzie is slotted as the slot wide receiver, I think this move is a B-. And if he's coming back to be the de facto slot wide receiver before anyone is drafted, and he's not even being considered as a return specialist or anything like that. I think this move is a B minus. I think a lot of this depends on how he's planning to be used in this new offense. If they're going to give him the same type of gimmicky gadget stuff on top of some actual slot work, it's all kind of wait and see. But the big thing with this, I think the huge thing about signing McKenzie is that it gives you someone that's a little bit more proven than your Marquez Stevensons, your Isaiah Hodgins, your Tanner Gentrys of the world. You have something that you're much more confident in than those three guys. And McKenzie, you're confident that he can do his job, get the yards that are there, and usually more, quite honestly, and hopefully add something in the return game. And I think that's a big if with him, because we know it's been a big if with him his entire career. But I think that's the big if with him moving forward, and the contract that he signed and all of that stuff. But I think it's huge in terms of planning for the draft. I think it's massive to get him on the books, to make sure that we have three guys that we're confident in, knowing how much we like to use 11 personnel, whether that continues or not, knowing how much we like to, we need to have three guys we're confident enough in. And I think McKenzie falls into that bucket of we're confident enough in this guy to operate as our third wide receiver. If we draft a guy and he's not comfortable enough to be our de facto slot guy, we're confident enough in McKenzie to be that 3. The rookie can be that 4, everyone fill in their place behind. So I think for that purpose, it's going to be somewhere in the B range, but it's so fluid because it's so dependent on how he's used. And I think that's where this conversation starts and ends with the Isaiah McKenzie signing. It is massive in terms of getting that insurance policy, making sure you know what your known commodity is in the room, getting that guy in there so you have some sense of clarity and you can be a little bit more flexible in the draft. But it comes down to usage.
Very interesting. And you know the drill here. Before I get to my thought, we got super chats again. AK Cash with another one. Thank you very much for your super chat. And the kind of question here, he said, you think Von Miller had the Bills in his sights before being traded? I think the Bills had their sights on Von Miller. They were rumored to be in on him. Granted, we heard what Brandon Beane said last week when it comes to, he mentioned it with JJ Watt last year in terms of like when you're rumored or attached to somebody. Like he said they didn't even get that far down the road with JJ Watt. They just called and inquired. But once you get flagged, the rumor is like, oh, you're in on this guy. But they never talk about, are you in on him did you just call and say what's up? Or are you like 8 days in of hard contract negotiations and things like that? They never really reveal that. But we do know at the very least, the Bills made a preliminary inquiry into Von Miller at the trade deadline, much like they did the year before with Emmanuel Sanders, much like they did the year before that with Stephon Diggs. So I think the Bills' interest was very, very, very real. And if there, we still have those rumors that there were multiple defensive stud free agents who came and approached the Bills about potentially coming to Buffalo. It's easier to connect the dots a little more now, but one of those rumors is that it was Von Miller who approached the Bills at the combine. Well, it would have been his agent who potentially wanted to come to Buffalo. I do think Von Miller had his sights. I don't think this was something where the Bills were like, well, Chandler's done and Hunter wants too much money. Like, let's call Von Miller, I guess. I think the Bills have had Von Miller earmarked for a decent amount of time, and I think he in turn had them earmarked a little as well. What are your thoughts on that, Kendall?
No, I think it's an interesting point tying it back to like the Emmanuel Sanders thing and the Stephon Diggs thing. I think, I don't know if he necessarily had his sights set on the Bills, but he probably understood that the Bills had their sights set on him, and then vice versa. He then realized if they have interest in me, I should seek this out and see how much they're willing to give me. If they value me in this way, I should entertain this idea. And he entertained it far enough where he got paid, and he's now part of Bills Mafia.
Which is still wild. Another one from Silas. Silas, you're keeping the lights on for all of us with this episode, and we appreciate the hell out of you. He says the Jordan Phillips signing feels like Settle's gone. I don't think so. I think, if anything, I would think that means that potentially Star, maybe they know some things and he is more potentially on his way out. But I don't think that necessarily means Settle's gone. Kendall, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't have any thoughts on it because have we really even seen anything confirmed, like from the Bills account on this Jordan Phillips thing? I mean, obviously we have the confirmation from Talbot that he heard sources and stuff like that, but nothing's like fully confirmed. Same can be said about Settle, but I don't know if like it's a one for one, like replace this, replace that. I'm very wishy-washy on it. I think if Phillips is signed, I think that is kind of my reservation. It's like what Phillips does for this defense in the interior defensive line position, it's very similar to what we're expecting from Settle. And the thing with Settle is he's only 25 years old.
Yes.
And we agreed to terms, and I think they're pretty valuable terms. So that's where I have some pause with this. Yeah, I love the energy that Jordan Phillips brings back to this room, the energy that he brings back to Bills Mafia. You can tell he's bringing it, but
different attitude up front.
Exactly. But the main pause for me is the fact that we could get a very similar skill set with untapped potential and Settle for probably not cheaper. Honestly, we'd probably be able to get Jordan Phillips cheaper than Settle, which is probably why the Bills could be considering this, and the Settle thing isn't unannounced or is unannounced to this point. But either way, it's very up in the air. I'm not really going to put any like solid takes out here on that, but I think the two are very similar in what they would provide to this room. So I think it probably will be one or the other because I feel like their skill sets are redundant.
That is very interesting. Like, because of the redundancy piece, like you mentioned, I don't know if it means Settle's gone. Again, at the very least, it's a rotational battle and it's depth. I think it more maybe speaks to the potential of Star going bye-bye. And again,
That's a good point.
And we also have to see, I still got to see what the contracts come out. Like, what does the dead cap look like? What because you can look at someone's contract and be like, well, just based on the contract, he's not going anywhere versus his contract has a natural out. He might be gone, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. We got another super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, A. Brennick. He says, what do you think about Will Fuller as a cheap reclamation project, a wide receiver? If he is healthy and not suspended, he could be a deep threat option. I don't even think could be a deep threat option. He is a deep threat option. He's got speed for days. He can get vertical. He's also a better route runner than I think people give him credit for, and he can do a variety of things, but he is your prototypical run a 9 or run a drag. And we're going to get you the ball and you can easily get yards. My biggest concern is some of the off the field stuff that happened with him, but also, if we're not even going with that, I hate saying guys are injury prone because things can happen to anyone, but he just really seems injury prone every single year. And now, granted, the Bills staff is tremendous when it comes to injury. People talk about their facilities all the time. I'm worried from an injury concern perspective. So I'd prefer him if he was the fourth option, pure fourth option. Pairing him with McKenzie makes me a little worried. And, I'll talk about receiver here as well, like, because this is what spawned the whole question here. And I'll leave, the comment up there for context of it. I like McKenzie for his niche. He's a B for me in his niche. If he's wide receiver 3, I'm to a B-. I like him. I think he is what he is. He is not a Cole Beasley replacement. He cannot run the route tree that Cole Beasley can. Also, I wanted to bring up, I tweeted this out yesterday and I have it earmarked now. Cole Beasley is better at football than everybody thinks he is. I know the talk around town has been, he can only beat zone coverage. Not true. Cole Beasley versus man coverage last year, he had a reception percentage of 70%, which depending on how you filter it out, if you filter it out for receivers with 20 targets against man, he was in the top 14. If you filter it out for receivers with 30 targets against man, he was number 6. Devontae Adams, for reference, had a man coverage reception percentage of 70.7, so 0.7 percentage points higher. Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football and can separate for days. Right. Cole Beasley is still a very good receiver. If you're pairing Will Fuller with someone like that or a more do-it-all wide receiver 3, I like the Will Fuller option because again, with McKenzie, I like the niche that he fills. I'm not holistically confident in him to be wide receiver 3. I like his niche of give me 15 to 20 snaps a game. Some are going to come out of the backfield. Some are going to be in motion. Some are going to be in slot. We might give you the ball on a toss. We might give you the ball out of the backfield. I like the gadgetry piece of let's move this guy all around, and they have to account for him. Exactly. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think Isaiah McKenzie is going to be the true wide receiver 3 that people think he is, to the point where he's seeing like a 65 to 70% snap share and he's out all the time and he's getting the ball left and right. And he's seeing, if the Bills have 65 offensive plays, he's on the field for 50 of them. Right. I don't think he's going to be that guy. And that's fine. Like, his gadgetry piece and niche piece is so great.
It's very valuable.
It is very valuable, especially when you don't have to get worn down all the time. You can bring a guy fresh off the bench and then you give him on a jet sweep with McKenzie. That's an easy 5 yards, like almost gimme.
That's actually a good point that we should add to this. I mean, the more that McKenzie sees the field, he's been injured more. He's not necessarily someone that can stand the test of a full snap share for every single week. And we saw it with Cole Beasley. Who's to say McKenzie's going to hold up any better than that?
That's fair. Like, there's almost that diminishing return capability with him, but his skill set is intriguing. And I think that's why he comes back.
Yes.
And it also offers you a safe floor in knowing what to expect. But a really good comment there, Brennick, with Will Fuller. I think, again, he's a guy that he's going to sign somewhere for cheap. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be like one of the best bargain grabs of all of free agency. But the issue is whether he can, which is a significant
the flyer you're taking on it.
Correct. And he is a flyer because he's also fast. But I mean, continuing to talk about that wide receiver room, this room is going to get changed in somehow, some way, whether it's Beasley stays, Beasley goes and they sign a free agent, they draft a wide receiver. My problem with drafting a wide receiver is, unless you get Garrett Wilson, Olave, Drake London, I'd probably throw Jamison Williams in there, not because of his polish, but because of his skill set. Unless you're getting one of those guys, I don't think you're getting a receiver right away that's ready to come in and be wide receiver 3.
You don't feel that way with Dotson?
I forgot Dotson. Yes.
Okay, just double checking. I feel that way with Dotson.
I don't want to throw him in. I feel with him the same way I do about like McDuffie and McCreary. I'd love to rotate them more. I don't want to just be like, hey, you're in.
You're the guy.
Correct.
Put the pressure on him.
But you know what, though? To that point, the flip side, that means Gabriel Davis is rocking wide receiver 2. So majority of your snaps are going with Diggs and Gabriel Davis. And if you're running more 12 personnel, there's less pressure on Dotson. So then if you're going 3 wide receiver sets, his route running, his explosiveness, his hands, his extension, I'm okay with Dotson if that's it as well. And then again, you're coupling it with Isaiah McKenzie and rotating that piece in. And then you take Dotson out, you put McKenzie in, you've got that floor. I know some people have been like, the initial statement was like, McKenzie came back, like, now you're done at wide receiver. If Beasley goes, if Beasley stays, I still think you could see a draft pick at wide receiver. But if Beasley goes, there's most definitely either a free agency or early draft pick, a free agency move or early draft pick coming at wide receiver, or still maybe even both. Like, I just don't think, and this isn't a knock on Isaiah McKenzie, I don't think we go into the year with Isaiah McKenzie as the hands down lock for 3rd on the depth chart. Right. I think they still see him. Granted, maybe he gets more usage. Maybe Ken Dorsey wants to use him in more ways. So we could be wrong. And he might say, no, I want him to be my wide receiver 3. I'm moving in a different way. Also, if we go 12 personnel, OJ Howard might be more like wide receiver 3 based on snap percentage, but I just don't see it happening where Isaiah McKenzie is the lock for 3rd on the depth chart.
But that's a good way to put it. Like, that's how I'm viewing the rest of free agency and what they do in the wide receiver room. I'm using that as my reasoning for where they prioritize wide receiver in the draft. If they do nothing and they go into the draft with McKenzie as their de facto wide receiver 3, then I'm expecting an early investment at the position. If they pick up a vet at the position, and maybe it's like a Jamison Crowder, like I've been alluding to, then I could see them taking a day 3 or a late day 2 wide receiver to add to the room. That's kind of where I'm using free agency as my peek behind the curtain as what the Bills are trying to do in terms of draft prioritization into this position. Because if they do nothing, it really seems like they're going to try to take a wide receiver with their first 3 picks to make sure that McKenzie isn't locked in as wide receiver 3, because I don't think they have the confidence in him to do that either. Obviously, a lot of this is barring the Beasley stuff, and what I just laid out is essentially saying Beasley is gone.
That's fair. And then, then you're looking into the realm of, give me I mean, Garrett Wilson's my wide receiver one, but you give me Garrett Wilson, you give me Olave, you give me, again, I don't think Jameson Williams is like, I like a lot more receivers in my rankings more than Jameson Williams, but his skill set and his fit would be tremendous with the Bills and Josh Allen. So unless I'm getting one of them or Dotson or London
I love
or
Drake London.
yeah, me too. I really like his game. Even with the separation concerns, quote unquote. And then if you're going in like later, I really like Sky Moore a lot. His skill set's really intriguing, but again, he's someone who we talked about it in that film room breakdown. Granted, the Bills run RPO like at a 20% clip and they're high with that. But like Western Michigan ran RPOs like 90 something percent of the time. It's just all RPO, RPO, RPO. I don't think Sky Moore's route running and his route tree is ready to get those snaps there. Could he succeed? Yes. And given his skill set and his athletic profile, could you still work him in, find success? Yes. There's also some guys, Silas, again, keeping the lights on and with really good comments. Appreciate you, Silas. Silas says, save the cap space. Alec Pierce, from Cincinnati, or Christian Watson from North Dakota State should be wide receiver 3 next season. I like both of their skill sets. I don't know if I'm ready to throw them into the fire to that degree. I don't think they have. I really like Watson's skill set a lot. His Senior Bowl week was tremendous. Pierce had a good week too, and his Cincinnati tape is fun. Eric Turner did a breakdown on Pierce, but I don't know if the polish and the mental side of the game is such a big thing. And here's a fun quote. I put it earlier. So Brandon Beane said this after they traded for Stephon Diggs, because they asked him, why make the move? This receiving class is really good in the draft. Why not go for a receiver there? He mentioned some things about COVID, but he also said, talking about rookie wide receivers, the mental part is so hard. And that's why I think so many receivers, and we talk about it all the time, probably one of the higher bust rates across the league, because I think it's more mental than physical. I think it's a lot to put on a rookie wide receiver's shoulders to come in and impress right away. Granted, we saw last year with Jamar Chase. The year before, we saw Justin Jefferson. You don't see, though, a lot of rookie receivers who come on the scene and just crush it. You don't see that. And I know Chase had this year past. Again, Jefferson had the year prior. You don't see it a ton where rookie receivers come in. I think, speaking to Brandon Beane's point, it's because of that mental piece combined with the physical. It's hard. Beane also mentioned in that quote earlier, the part of how college football offense are so much like come to the field and come to the line, stop, look to the sideline, get the signal, run your thing. It's a different pacing. It's different hearing calls in the huddle and knowing what you have to do, and then come to the line, pre-snap alert, post-snap adjustments, reading coverages happening in front of you. The NFL wide receiver game is a big jump. I mean, the NFL game is a jump in general from college football, but the receiver position is very much mental. And I think, in addition to the physical, which is already demanding, I think people don't consider that mental piece. And so that's why, like, those locks for me, like the Olaves, the Garrett Wilsons, the Dotsons, those guys who have polish to their game and who understand it from a mental and physical perspective, and they've got pieces in their game, either physically or mentally or both, that are already NFL ready. Like Dotson has an NFL caliber route tree. Combined with his hands and his extension. So I think it'll be easier for him to learn the mental side, because he's had high caliber competition in college and he can focus on it more because of what his skill set presents. But even with him, it's going to be tough for him. It's going to be tough for Garrett Wilson. It's going to be tough for Olave. These guys with skill sets and polish and pedigree, it's still tough for them, let alone, more unproven guys from a caliber perspective and guys who are more raw, which I think Pierce and Watson are. Although I like them, I still think it's a lot to put on a rookie wide receiver's shoulders.
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit to this. I think the nice part about this is we have Josh Allen. We have a nice foundation for our offense and possibly a bit of a shifting towards more 12 personnel. So whoever that wide receiver 3 is, if it is a rookie, then they might have less of a burden than they would have had if they're coming in to be a 1-for-1 replacement for Cole Beasley in a 90% 11 personnel offense. That's a lot of pressure. And having a quarterback like Josh Allen that might be using more 12 personnel, I think there's a lot less pressure than you otherwise would have had if you're slotting in a third wide receiver into the slot position like back in 2020.
Mm.
And like they're really thrown into the fire. So I think it's a little different this year, and there's a little less throwing into the fire and throwing it into the deep end kind of thing. But
Mhm.
it's still difficult to your point. I agree. Most of all of these wide receivers in this draft have the physical side down.
Yes.
Like they're all there physically. They're all physically
But it's that
capable.
mental piece.
It is the mental
It's a
piece.
huge piece. And I want to grab some of the comments here as we start to wrap up. Johnny's comment here: Jameson, Olave, Dotson are all polished route runners. I disagree slightly on Jameson Williams. I don't think his polish is there when it comes to route running. And Chris asked a question earlier. He said, "What do you mean by polish?" When we mean by polish, we mean how do you run routes? Is there suddenness? Is there crispness? Is there snap? Do you run your routes lazily or rounded? Are you winning with just physical ability, or are you winning because you've got the footwork, you've got the balance, you've got that snap and that precision in your steps? Can you set up routes in different ways? Can you change your stem? Can you have multiple release points? Showing the things that work at the NFL level, that's more than just physical, showing that technical side of your game from a footwork perspective, a hands perspective, running multiple routes, all that stuff. And, maybe for me, the devil's advocate for Jameson Williams is because he's such a burner, maybe he didn't have to showcase it because they're just like, bro, just go run a post or a vertical and you're going to get wide open.
That was literally my point with Jameson Williams. Like, I think he's a great separator, but it's nothing to do with his route running. It's just because he's faster
and
than
you don't
people.
see, there's a couple routes where you see some snap, but even his like outs and his hitches, there's not that bang, bang. There's not that pop. There's not that I just made a 1-2 step and the corner went flying and I lost my man with my route running in the snap. Like that's that difference in the polish, although his physical ability is great. And Chris also had a comment. Calvin Austin III is a good route runner. Sauce even said he was the hardest he had to, somebody mean cover there, even more so than the Alabama guys. I love his tape. I liked him at the Senior Bowl. He's one who, he's much more than speed. His route running is better than people realize. And he's another one who's very intriguing on probably day 2 now. He's played himself into the round 3, round 2 type of scenario now. But I'm throwing up the toodles, you guys, on the banner if you're watching, because we've been going for an hour and 45. We got to get out of here. It's been intense this evening. And I want to start by thanking you, Mr. Kendall Mirsky, for joining me again tonight. And I'm sorry, I got distracted. Johnny said, Jameson is a polished route runner, probably not as good as Olave. He's definitely not as good as Olave, and the same was said about DK. DK is still not a polished route runner. He wins with physical ability. Watch him run like a hitch, like a 10-yard stop, I should say. It takes him like 4 steps to be able to gear down. Even with his athleticism and fluidity, it takes him like a lot of steps to be able to come down and come back. He's still not a polished runner. I can't get distracted right now. I got to stick on the intro. Kendall, you were awesome tonight, as always. Thank you so much for joining me. You joined me last night in the film room. Sands, our leader, Mr. Eric Turner. We crushed the film room last night. Silas has great show as usual, boys.
Thanks, Silas.
Great show to you, Silas. Your comments, your donations, appreciate the hell out of you. Kendall, I wouldn't have had as much fun doing this episode tonight if you weren't here with me. So thank you so much for joining me, and you helped tremendously as we had to hash out all this breaking news that happened. So thank you so much for that. Thank you very much for everybody in the live chat. Again, the donations, the super chats, the engagement. You know how we like to do here, and grab as many and every single comment as we can. And we love the engagement, the back and forth. I apologize for not being able to get to as many of them as we could. There was so much stuff we were looking up. There were so many comments. It was so hard to keep track of everything. But regardless, I appreciate the hell out of all you guys for riding with us live on this episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you're watching later or listening later, thank you very much for your listen, for your download, your play, everything like that. We're sponsored, this show, One Pie Pizza. Got to get to it now. We still got a lot of people in here. The online menu can be found in the episode show notes. One Pie Pizza. Best pizza in Buffalo, sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese, great people. They do a lot for the community, toy drives, cancer initiatives. They're just tremendously, tremendously generous. I'm very thankful to have them as a sponsor. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Again, the online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether you're listening on any podcasting apps or platforms or watching on YouTube. While you're here on YouTube, still riding with us now, please drop a like on your way out. If you're watching not live, you're watching later, drop a like while you're here. As I say, it goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears all that good stuff. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. On behalf of Kendall Mirsky, on behalf of myself, thank you very much to anyone and everyone who joined us live tonight and who watched or listened later to this recording. We appreciate the hell out of you guys. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all do well and stay safe. I will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.